Something very strange is going on right now with the Toronto Raptors. After the firing of Masai Ujiri, we were told by CEO of MLSC, Keith Pele, that a new president of basketball operations will be named this summer. And essentially, it has been radio silence from MLSC and all the reporting from the Toronto Raptors on how that position, how that search has been going since that moment happened. Well, now we just got a major update in regards to the Toronto Raptors' pursuit, MLSC's pursuit of finding a new president of basketball operations for this Toronto Raptors team, and it is very, very strange, the information that was leaked, and frankly has me a little bit concerned about the future, the direction the Toronto Raptors are going for this position. So we're going to break down everything this new report is saying, what it means to this Toronto Raptors group, and frankly, why fans are a little bit worried following this update. So lots of stuff to break down out here in this video. But before we do, folks, I want to let each and every single one of you know that if you want to listen to Raptors Digest on the go, get all of your daily updates while listening in the background, you don't have YouTube Premium, make sure you guys check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, because we are uploading every single Raptors Digest episode over there with video included. So make sure you guys check that out there as well. But let's dive into the news because, frankly, there's been a lot of things coming out in regards to the Toronto Raptors presidency, some rumors and stuff, but no real actual reports, no real insights coming from the insiders. There's speculation about, Bob Myers coming in, about Steve Nash, agencies, all that. Well, Josh Loomberg just did a major deep dive and broke down some of the weird things that are going on behind the scenes in regarding to this hunt. So let's dive into it. As first thing he said is the elephant in the room is that one person who is no longer in the room, around Summer League, and that is Masai Ujiri. Nobody is talking about their former boss or even speaking his name out loud. Ask somebody about him on or off the record, you'll get a scripted response. Something along the lines of, he did great things and will be missed, but life goes on. He went on to say that requests made to general manager Bobby Webster or other members of the front office to be available to the media have been declined, even for stories unrelated to Masai Ujiri. And the sense is that the code of silence is a directive coming from the very top. The nervous energy is palpable. So this is the first thing that's coming out, which is very, very interesting from Josh Loomberg. Essentially, there is a scripted response, and we heard the quotes from Darko from, during Summer League when brought up in regards to Masai Ujiri. Very similar responses, very similar stuff in regards to Masai Ujiri and his legacy out there with the Toronto Raptors. And we haven't really heard from Bobby Webster since this whole situation ended up going down, ended up happening. So in regards to specifics and how he's feeling about the president of basketball operations role and things along those lines. So there's an expectation. There's a directive from the top down in terms of silencing discussions on Masai Ujiri or any real discourse with the front office, which is very, very interesting because, right now the Raptors haven't had any updates, developments in terms of that president of basketball operations role. And Josh Loomberg covers some more details on this situation as well, saying that everybody is scared, said one team source who remains anonymous. The closer you are to the top, the more you feel it. So this is very discouraging for someone that is in the camp of thinking Bobby Webster should be the president of basketball operations. But right now, no decisions have been made. No one's coming in, but these guys are all locked into long-term contract extensions. And if a new president of basketball operations comes in, usually they want their own guys. But right now, there hasn't been much back and forth. There hasn't been, there was all signs that Webster was going to be given a legitimate shot, a legitimate opportunity to get that presidency role. Then there wouldn't be this nervous energy. There wouldn't be all this stuff coming out to the media and all the back channels and all of that. So this is fairly concerning in terms of someone that is a little bit worried about bringing in someone that's not going to be able to do the best job in the world, for this Raptors group. And that's built on top of this, update. But to say that Bobby Webster's job to lose may be a stretch. Pele seemed to give the impression that their preference was to bring in somebody new and keep Webster in the GM role for the time being. And that's the sense that league insiders have gotten as well. So Josh Loomberg is revealing that not only, team personnel, but also league insiders are not in the camp of believing that Keith Pele, the MLSC, the board are that excited, that enthused about Bobby Webster getting that president of basketball operations role. He's not completely written out of it or it's anything like that. But if they have an opportunity to go outside the franchise, outside the organization, then they are going to take that opportunity and keep Bobby Webster out there in that general manager role. And then basically went on to say that as if the situation wasn't precarious enough already, imagine asking Webster to report to somebody with less relevant experience who beat him out for the job that he wanted and felt that he earned. He was recently given a contract extension along with the other prominent members of his leadership team, but according to sources, those deals run through the 26-27 season. Hardly a long-term commitment or something that would preclude a new president from cleaning house and bringing in their own people. So, essentially, there was all this talk about, hey, now's the time to part ways with Masai Ujiri because there's stability, because we have such a, great cornerstones out there in the front office of the Raptors group. Everyone's extended besides Masai. So now's a good time to keep the stability and stuff. Basically what Josh Lumberg is saying, that's a bunch of silliness because these are short-term contract extensions, so it's easy for a new president of basketball operations to come into the mix and clean house if need be. And that's where, this discourse is really coming from, in terms of what people are saying. Everybody is scared. The closer you are to the top, the more you feel it. So that is not that great as someone that is a fan of the decisions the front office has made over the past decade or so. And basically he went on to say that, Webster isn't Ujiri, as that may end up being more of a feature than a bug. He doesn't bring that same larger-than-life personality or gravitas qualities that Toronto fans have generally looked in for their sports executives. But he is down to earth as it gets into the business, and at that position, he's more understated as a leadership style and different in the way of communicating. While some rival executives were intimidated and occasionally put off by Masai Ujiri, it's hard to imagine anybody saying we won't deal with Bobby Webster. He's a bit of a chameleon in that way that he and that he can dress down and have casual conversations with players or team staff while also fitting in with a commanding respect from his front office colleagues and peers. The biggest question is whether he'll be able to hold an audience in the MLSE boardroom or an arena which Ujiri always felt comfortable, and sell the suits on a trade or a signing, and most crucially himself. So I thought this was a really interesting, and it's a long excerpt in regards to Bobby Webster, but in terms of their differences and what they bring to the table, because a lot of people, don't get Bobby Webster. I don't like the moves that Ujiri made. He got fired for a reason. Why bring in his understudy? Well, Bobby Webster's a completely different guy, and one thing that definitely, as a Masai Ujiri stan myself, one thing that was certain, teams were afraid to negotiate with Masai Ujiri. He was intense. He made a lot of these finesse trades, all of those types of things. And Bobby Webster does not have that same personality, and this report's revealing that he doesn't have that same reputation across the league. But that is a positive in terms of trade negotiations, relationship building, all of that stuff. But it does hurt you in the sense that if Bobby Webster wants to make a big splash, if he wants to throw his weight around and actually be listened to by the higher-ups out there at MLSE, out there at the ownership group of the Toronto Raptors, he needs to be able to have that, intensity. He needs to be able to have that respect out there from his organization. So, it's a two-way street in terms of being a bit of a straw man and then, getting things done and things like that there on that front, but definitely a difference in terms of, styles of leadership for Bobby Webster and as well as Masai Ujiri, and then went on to say that according to multiple sources, Ujiri was the driving force behind the Brandon Ingram deal at last February's trade deadline, while others in the room were less convinced about the fit and the timing. To just assume that Webster would pick up where Ujiri left off might be misguided. They could use a fresh perspective after missing the playoffs in 4 of the past 5 seasons, but they don't necessarily need to look outside the organization for that. The grass isn't always greener. So that's, of course, Brandon Ingram is a star player. 22 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 5 assists last season for the New Orleans Pelicans in his short stints, dealt with some injuries and stuff. But basically, it is very, very interesting, very, very intriguing in terms of everything that's going on with this whole situation. But Bobby Webster is not Masai Ujiri. He's a different candidate. He has different obstacles in terms of, gaining that influence in Raptors ownership. But let me know what you guys think about all these updates, all of this news regarding this Toronto Raptors team. Josh Lumberg did a great breakdown. That's where I got my excerpts. I'll link the article down below. But you guys have the best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.